What's up, everyone? Welcome to this gospel series that I'm doing on the Sabbath. And if you guys remember the last time we did this, we were talking about how Jesus was going through and he had just got baptized and he was healing people. He was casting out demons and healing people who were mentally ill, all of those things. And so he was creating a huge stir in that area, and probably who knows how far abroad this stir was being created by somebody going around healing all of these things that they have been suffering with. And so now we get into a point to where he is coming to a mountain and there's thousands of people, multitude of people gathered, and they're here to hear what he says. And we're going to do the first chapter of this. I think it goes through 3 chapters of him actually giving this Sermon on the Mount. Also, just like in the last one, in the description, there is study materials that you can go and you can take and you can print out, or you can just look at it. It's a PDF and it has like crosswords and different word studies and just different thoughts on the Matthew chapter 5. So make sure you take advantage of that. It's free. It's in the description and check it out. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. I'm using Bible Hub. And I'm using it because it has a Strong's concordance with it. So if I need to look up any specific words or anything like that, I can look them up. And it just makes it pretty easy for you guys to follow along as well. So here we go. And it says, "And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain. And when he was set, his disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. And blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of God." And I'm just going to kind of take a pause right there to look over some of these things here. And when you look at some of these things, none of them sound great, like being poor in spirit, people who are mourning, people who are meek. But because all of these things are not natural to our physical bodies, and these are things that our spirit may long for, but our bodies don't long for. We long for strength. We long for sustainability. We long for all of the things that make us strong in this world, whereas the things that make us weak are the things that seem to bring us closer to God here in these words. And these words are super important for anybody who's ever really took the time to look at these words and self-reflect. It gives us a lot to think about who we are as people. At least it does for me. And so we're going to move on to verse 11 here. It says, "Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you." And I know this verse right here probably speaks to a lot of people that may be listening right now and that can think of situations where you're being persecuted because you're trying to do the right thing, or you're trying to follow the word of God, but you're being persecuted because of that, or because people don't agree with what you're doing and they'll come against you and say all kinds of things against you falsely, maybe because in their mind they think they're right. But ultimately it says you're blessed when this happens. And so that's why a lot of times, like when I've received attacks over the years, which, I've been doing this for a long time, I've become mature in this, and it took many years for me to understand this. But when that happens, God's got my back because they're actually accusing me falsely. So God has my back in those situations. And that's why when we allow this to be done and let God kind of take control of the situation, we see our enemies kind of just falter, and you don't even see them anymore, and they're just gone out of the way when we let God take control of this, because they did this to the prophets, it says, that were before them. And so I think it's important that we understand that when these kind of situations happen, we need to realize that God does fight our battles for us, and we should be thankful because that means that we're doing something. If we weren't getting falsely, you know, persecuted falsely and saying people weren't saying evil things about us, would we really even be a battle to the system at all? Would we be anything to the system? Are we just another piece of the system that's just moving through earth? And so move on to verse 13. It says, "Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and to be trodden under the foot of men." So salt is an interesting substance that flavors things, but it also preserves things. And so there's a lot of people that don't preserve anything and they don't have any flavor to them at all. They don't have anything that the world can look at and say, this person's different. This person has a power to preserve, which is an important power of, I believe, in people who are God's chosen, is to be able to preserve things like friendships and preserve peace and preserve all of the things that really make what we would consider a child of God, somebody that's able to exhibit this kind of light. And if we don't have those things, it's basically nothing good for it other than to be trodden down on the ground under the foot of men, is what it's saying. It says in verse 14, "You're the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." So this is a charge to tell people to go out there and do good things and be seen doing good things and be a light to the world, and not somebody that, I'm good, I do good things, I do righteous things, but I don't really share that with people. I don't even let people know like what I've got going on. I'm just kind of like to my own little world, kind of in a selfish little bubble of me trying to do what's right. And this kind of twists that on its head, because there's the cultural idea of not letting people know how blessed you are, not letting people know what you have going on in your life because you're afraid they're going to judge you. And in this world, it makes sense. There's a lot of jealous people and a lot of people out there that just because you have one thing that they like that you have better than them, you're their enemy. You know, there's a lot of that out there, but this is not necessarily showing how cool you have things. It's more showing the light that you have and being able to exhibit that to other people. And verse 17, it says, "Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill." And this is probably some of the most misunderstood verses, I think, in the Bible. And this is what triggered the religious people who were in charge of the assemblies at the time. These were the respected men, etc. So it says in we'll go to 17 again. "Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I come not to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled." So this is really interesting verse because it's used on both ends, where the people that say we should follow the law use it, and also the people that say we shouldn't follow the law use it, because they kind of, both of them use certain parts of that verse, but it's saying that he didn't come to destroy, but to fulfill. And a lot of people try to use that word fulfill as a means to ending. But if you look at it in terms of any other way you'd use the word fulfill, that wouldn't make sense. Like if I said, I didn't come to destroy my wife, but I came to fulfill my wife, or I came to fulfill my duties, or I came to fulfill whatever, you're doing them, you're fulfilling them. So that, keep that in your mind. And it says, "For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled." And so when we look at this in context, heaven and earth are still here. And so he's saying that, like, I didn't come to destroy any of the law, Until heaven and earth passes away, it won't even be done. And it says, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. So he goes on to clarify it even further. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. And so that whole chapter has to be taken in context, and I'll let you guys decide what it means, but that's what it says. In verse 20 it says, "For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter the kingdom of heaven." And going on to verse 21 here, and it says, "You have heard it said by them of old time, Thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of judgment. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Rakah, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire." So he clarifies that even more too. It's not just people that kill their brother, it's the people that hate their brother. They hate him without cause, or they're saying, bad things. And this word rakah here, we'll look at the study on that real quick. It is 4469 in the Strongs, and it means like good for nothing, like basically tell them you're worthless. You're a worthless whatever, mind game, or just whatever, you're worthless is what it's saying here. And so we'll keep going on here. It says, "Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and thou rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come offer thy gift. Agree with thine adversary quickly, whiles thou art in the way with him, lest he at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast in prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence till thou hast paid the utmost farthing." And so it's basically saying, like, don't come up here trying to give sacrifices at the altar if you've got something against your brother. You need to go take care of that and make that right, because if you don't, it's not even worthy. Your altar, your sacrifice is not worthy at all. So he's clarifying this stuff, making it even more I wouldn't say even harder to follow. It just gives it sense of all the laws that they've had before, because they've had, if you look at the Levitical law and even some of the, the laws that they had to institute once they became a nation, because remember, the law that was given to Moses was very simple. But the problem is they had a hard heart, according to the Bible, and they couldn't really follow those commands. And so they had to get a Levitical priesthood going underneath Aaron's priesthood, and they had to create all of these laws that even kept them further from disobeying the law. If you really truly love your brother or sister and you're wanting to do what's right, there doesn't really need to be a law about how you should repay that person if you did something wrong. There really shouldn't have to be that law. You should know that if you cost somebody a lot of money and you do it, and you need to repay that person. I mean, that's something that I feel like is normally ingrained in most of us in the world, but these people had to have all of these rules attached to the simplicity of loving your neighbor and loving God, and all of those things. So it's pretty interesting to look at. Okay, so we'll go on to verse 27 here. It says, "Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of the members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell." And that's a really interesting verse there, because the idea of adultery being even more in depth than just actually committing the physical act, and being something that comes from the heart, and you're being able to commit that adultery from within. That's something that, as a new concept to these people, you'll see that at the end of all of this, that the people were astonished by everything he said. This is not something that they had even really considered before, but this idea. And nowadays it's even easier to get on computer screens or whatever and look and see these things. And, there's a deterioration of the soul that takes place when people engage their mind in that kind of activity, because ultimately we aren't really who we are physically. We are who we are inside of here. We have a physical representation of who we are, but ultimately what's inside is who we are. And so if we push against that and try to deteriorate it, that's exactly what's going to happen. And it talks about even casting your eye out if it offends you. That's how important it is that we should remember this. And it says, and if your right hand offend thee, cut it off, cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. So it's saying it's better that whatever it is you got struggling with, you need to get rid of it. You need to get rid of it right now. It's better to be one-handed than to go out here and lose your whole body. So, I mean, very simply put there, and it's hard to add to some of these things. That's why I look at these and I'm not really adding to it. I'm just kind of clarifying, because it really is very simple. But somehow I believe in the Western church, especially because that's really all I can speak to as much, because I grew up in it my whole life. It just seems that these words are skimmed over as maybe being nothing, and even extreme dispensationalists actually cast these words off as not being important to the church. So go on to verse 31. It had been said, whoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery. And I'm just going to leave that right there and say what it says. So in vows, in verse 33, again ye have heard that it had been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is the footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. And so this is a very strict warning against oaths, and especially putting oaths on your own head or on things that are greater than you. In verse 38 it says, you have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn unto him and the other also. That's one right there is hard for people to wrap their mind around. But I want to tell you guys a story of a missionary friend that I know that his name's George. My goodness, I'll think of his last name here. George Husni. He's like 80 years old, but he grew up in Lebanon and went through the era of transformation to where a lot of the Christians were getting pushed out. Grew up kind of hating Muslims, but then he understood that like Jesus loved the Muslims too. But he went to this mosque one time and he started talking, and one of the hit leaders of the mosque started beating him across the face and across the body with a stick while he was talking about Jesus. And naturally you would want to fight back. I can't imagine how that felt in the moment, getting beat with a stick by an old man that was in this mosque. And George, even at his age, he's a stout guy. And so I can imagine when he's younger, he was even more stout. And he said that he felt the love of God flow through him, and he grabbed the man and he says, I love you. And Jesus loves you too. And like, as soon as he said that, the man like dropped his stick, and then basically the entire mosque flooded around George. And as he was able to share the gospel with almost everyone in the mosque, and I believe this happened in Egypt, and since there's been millions that have come to Christ because of this. But this is an example of, it seems like there's times for everything, right? If somebody's coming to your family trying to hurt your family, maybe this is a different situation than an evil man coming and beating you because you're sharing the gospel, or because whatever, because that could be an opportunity for whatever. I don't know what the blessing of martyrdom, but also the blessing of being able to overcome that hate with love is something that's a great testimony for all to see, I think. It says, and if any man, in verse 40, and if any man will sue thee at law and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away. So it's saying to be very generous with things. You know, if you have more, give more to people. Like if people are asking you for a sandwich, give them a sandwich and a drink, I guess you could say. It says, ye have heard that it had been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be that you may be the children of your Father which are in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sendeth rain to the just and the unjust. So this is it's hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, but it's saying don't just love your brothers, but love everybody. Know that God created these people. And if you are a child of God, you're going to have that love for these people that you know are cursed. You know they don't understand what's going on, and you know that they're acting in line with the system. They're basically agents of the matrix until their spiritual eyes are open. And we have to understand that about people and be able to look at the aspects of them that God tells us about. He tells us everything we need to know about humanity and how to be able to be a light to those people if we're willing to listen, if we're willing to actually read what the Bible would say here. And it says in verse 43, you have heard that it had been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I'm going to go ahead and read it one more time. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray to them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain to the just and unjust. For if ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. And so this is the first part of the message. This goes on for 2 more chapters after this. And next week, y'all willing, we will be here doing it again, and I'll have another worksheet for you. Check out that worksheet. You can download it. You can print it off, whatever. I think you can even make notes and changes to it, comments. And so check it out, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys tonight. We're doing the final midnight ride. We've been doing it for a decade. It's been the biggest thing either I or David have ever done, and it's been a huge blessing. But it's time, and God's made it clear to me that it's time to move to different things, and so that's what we're going to do tonight. So hopefully you guys will join us.